11's is easily the best meal time of the day. This is day 3 of reading The Hobbit and the Lord of the Rings trilogy. For every 1 follower I get, I'll read 1 word. Today we have this many followers, which means we got to read this many words. Honestly, blown away. I can't believe how popular this has got. I was doing this as a challenge for me. I didn't expect it to get this big. We're going to do this together. Let's get on with this. This hobbit was a very well-to-do hobbit, and his name was Baggins. The Bagginses have lived in the neighbourhood of the hill for time out of mind, and people considered them very respectable, not only because most of them were rich, but also because they never had any adventures or did anything unexpected. You could tell that what Baggins would say on any question would, without bother of asking him. Oh, tongue twister some of this, honestly. This is a story of how Baggins had an adventure and found himself doing and saying things altogether unexpected. He may have lost the neighbour's respect, but he gained, well, you will see whether he gained anything in the end. The mother of our particular hobbit was... What is a hobbit? I suppose hobbits need some description nowadays, since they have become rare and shy of the big people, as they call us. They are, or were, a little people, about half our height and smaller than the bearded dwarves. Hobbits have no beards. There is little or no magic about them, except the ordinary everyday sort which helps them to disappear quietly and quickly when large stupid folk like you and me come blundering along, making a noise like elephants which they can hear a mile off. They are inclined to be fat in the stomach. They dress in bright colours, chiefly green and yellow, wear no shoes because their feet grow natural leathery soles, and thick warm brown hair like the stuff on their hands, which is curly. I have long clever brown fingers, good-natured faces, and laugh deep fruity laughs, especially after dinner, which they have twice a day when they can get it. Ooh, love me some food. Now you know enough to go on with. As I was saying, the mother of the Hobbit, of Bilbo Baggins, that is, of the famous Belladonna Took, one of the 3 remarkable daughters of the Old Took, head of the Hobbits who lived across the water, the small river that ran at the foot of the hill. It was often said, in other families, that long ago one of the Took ancestors must have taken a fairy wife. That was of course absurd, but certainly there was still something not entirely Hobbit-like about them, and once in a while members of the Took clan would go and have adventures. They discreetly disappeared, and the family hushed it up. But the fact remained that the Tooks were not as respectable as the Bagginses, though they were undoubtedly richer. Not that Belladonna Took ever had any adventures after she became Miss Bungo Baggins. Bungo, that was Bilbo's father, built the most luxurious hobbit hole for her, and partly with her money. That was to be found either under the hill or over the hill, or across the water, and there they remained until the end of their days. Still, it is probable that Bilbo, her only son, although he looked and behaved exactly like a second edition of a solid and comfortable father, got something a bit queer in his makeup from the Took side, something that only waited for the chance to come out, the chance that never arrived until Bilbo Baggins was grown up, being about 50 years old or so, and lived in the beautiful hobbit hole built by his father, which I have just described to you, until he had, in fact, apparently settled down immovably. By some curious chance one morning, long ago, in the quiet of the world, when there was less noise and more green, and the hobbits were still numerous and prosperous, and Bilbo Baggins was standing at his door after breakfast, smoking an enormous long wooden pipe that reached nearly down to his woolly toes, neatly brushed, Gandalf came by. Gandalf! If you had heard only a quarter of what I have heard about him, and I have only heard very little of all there is to hear, you would be prepared for any sort of remarkable tale. Tales and adventures sprouted up all over the place wherever he went, in the most extraordinary fashion. He had not been down that way under the hill for ages and ages, not since his friend the Old Took died, in fact, and the hobbits had almost forgotten what he had looked like. He had been away over the hill and across the water on businesses of his own since they were small hobbit boys and hobbit girls. All that unsuspecting Bilbo saw that morning was an old man with a staff. He had a tall pointed blue hat, a long grey cloak, a silver scarf over which his long white beard hung down below the waist, and immense black boots. "Good morning," said Bilbo. He meant sun. He meant it. The sun was shining and the grass was evergreen, but Gandalf looked at him under the long bushy eyebrows that stuck out further than the brim of his shady hat. What do you mean, he said. Do you wish me a good morning, or mean that it is a good morning whether I want it or not? Or that I feel good this morning, or that it is morning to be good on? Ha ha. All of them at once, said Bilbo, and a very fine morning for a pipe of tobacco out of doors into the bargain. If you have a pipe about you, sit down and have a fill of mine. There's no hurry. We have all the day before us. Then Bilbo sat down on a seat by his door, crossed his legs, and blew out a beautiful grey ring of smoke that sailed up into the air without breaking and floated away over the hill. Very pretty, said Gandalf, but I have no time to blow smoke rings this morning. I am looking for someone to share in an adventure that I am arranging, and it is very difficult to find anyone. I should think so in these parts. We are plain quiet folk, and have no use for adventures. Nasty, disturbing, uncomfortable things make you late for dinner. I can't think of anybody seizing them, said our Mr. Baggins, and stuck one thumb behind his braces and blew out another even bigger smoke ring. Then he took out this morning's letters and began to read, pretending to take no more notice of the old man. He had decided that he was not quite his sort, and wanted him to go away. But the old man did not move. He stood leaning on his stick and gazing at the hobbit without saying anything, till Bilbo not quite uncomfortable and even a little cross. Good morning, he said at last. We don't want any adventures here, thank you. You might try over the hill or across the water. By this he meant that the conversation was at an end. What a lot of things you do use good morning for, said Gandalf. Now you mean that you want to get rid of me, and this it won't be good until I move off. And that brings us to the end of today's reading. I love this so much. Thank you all. Let's see how many we've got to do tomorrow.